car's underway. Stamps his authority once again.
My word, this could go wrong.
On the brakes, goodness me, what a launch.
Look at that.
It just all comes down to this. We are here today to see another APC broadcast, have another APC race, and it's going to be round number 6 of the season. It's our 7th race of the season, actually, our 8th broadcast, if you're going to count all of the broadcasts that we've done, including the pre-season stream, and also the one last time out, which was, of course, not only the main stream itself, but also we just had a little bit of we had a little bit of sprint action to bring you, and we were all the better for all of that. But now, race number 6. The majority of these drivers, in fact, home race, and it's going to be the British Grand Prix. And we can take you trackside, and we can have a look at this historic circuit, and what a circuit we have on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. Silverstone. What an absolutely unbelievable circuit. I mean, it's been on the calendar, the Formula 1 calendar. It was one of the original ones, and it's stuck around since around 1950. But, of course, it opened up in 1948, 2 years before the inaugural F1 World Championship, which it hosted the original race, attended by the likes of, Queen Elizabeth II and all those sorts of people. We're here, though, for Q1, or the only qualifying session, our short qualifying session here in the Almost Pro Championship, and we've got Daniel Riley about to get his lap underway, and we're going to ride on board with the Mercedes as he takes his Silver Arrow through this, through the final corner and heading on to this circuit now, down to the first corner. Sometimes this is the first corner, in GT races it's not, but we will still head through Abbey as our first corner, then through Farm, and then the first braking zone of the lap down into turn number 3. And turn 3, 4, 5 are in a segment called Arena. You can see that there's not much of a racing line that has formed at the moment because, of course, it's still early on in the session. Heading down now, getting a huge burst of slipstream from the Mercedes teammate in front of him of Stephen Snell. Then a braking zone, Brooklands turn number 6. You've got to keep it tight on the apex for Luffield, but he's run slightly wide. That's fine because he can set himself up well for the exit and get the acceleration down, heading through Woodcut and down through to Copse Corner, which is the next corner on the racetrack. And it's, if you're bold, an overtaking opportunity. That is what Dan Riley is going to head through now, on using all of the curbing on the inside line and on the outside as well, before you set yourself up well for Maggot, Beckett and Chappell. And this is Maggot, this is Beckett, and this is Chappell that he heads through now, opening up the DRS on the exit of the corner. And it's going to be the Hangar Straight, the third straight on this race track. And Dan Riley heading now through Stone down towards the final chicane on this circuit. That is 16, 17 and 18, Vale and Club. The final few corners on a very, very historic racetrack, and Daniel Riley will be setting the times so far with a 1:26.855. Is that going to be topped by anybody so far? Harry Jennings is going to be in the first sector, or actually in the second, so not much of an indication so far, as Connor Stewart has invalidated. He will not be setting a lap time just yet. Jack Weaver has set allegedly a purple sector time in the second sector, and he's going to come around the final couple of corners and see if he can beat Dan Riley's time of 1:26.855. Final couple of corners then, and he's got to get this braking zone absolutely fine. It looks like he has, and the acceleration as well is good. Is this going to be pole time? Not quite. It's going to be a 1:27.320. So actually just under 5/10 off of Riley's time. Chenkovan is expected to be the driver to be challenging for pole position, one of them at least, but at the moment he has invalidated, and I think he's getting ready to go again, as is Paul Garung just ahead of him. But Dan Riley's teammate Stephen Snell would have picked up some slipstream from his teammate in that first sector down the first straight on the lap, which of course it's not the first straight on the lap, but it's the first full straight on the lap, so it just, it just makes sense on the Wellington straight. And Stephen Snell, a 1:03.048 in the second sector, and heading down towards the third, but Welly out of the way nice and cleanly. and Stephen Snell. Final couple of corners then for the Mercedes, and we'll see what he's going to be capable of here in this qualifying session. Dan Riley, of course, his teammate with the benchmark time of 1:26.855, and well, what he's done there is he's managed to beat his teammate by 7/100ths of a second. So it's a Mercedes 1-2. And, well, it's not a bad start for them. The only drivers in the 1:26 is Paul Garung in that first sector as it stands. And, well, we'll see what he's capable of later on in his lap. Is anybody ahead of him actually on a push time? I'm not sure whether Harry Jennings is going to go again. Either way, he's invalidated, so he's not going again as it stands. So I believe the first driver will be Paul Garung, and the Aston Martin heading through the second sector now, and he'll come up to the split time. We saw what Stephen Snell's was. It was a 1:03.048, and it's going to be, for Paul Garung, a 1:02.657. That's an unbelievable start to his setup and to his qualifying session. He's going to try and take advantage of now. The final couple of corners beckon for the Aston Martin, and we'll see what he's going to be capable of, as he looked about 4/10 quicker than Stephen Snell, but of course all that time could be lost in the final sector. But it's not. A 1:26.370, and it is going to be the provisional pole time from Paul Garung, and it was about 4/10 quicker, so about level in two of the sectors. But well, he's the second driver into the 1:02s in his first sector's times, and I say first sectors because it's the first two, the 2/3 of the racetrack that he's headed through now, and he's on to the final three corners on this circuit. 16, 17 and 18 before he'll come out to the straight once again. And is Welly going to be able to find that little bit of time he needs on Paul Garung? No, he can't. He's actually lost time in that final sector. A 1:26.9 will send him to the back of the 1:26s, which is not a bad marker to be in anyway. Ethan Shackleton out on the circuit. He's invalidated, so he's not going to be improving on that time for the time being. Harry Jennings goes through. Is the Williams, in fact, on a push lap? It looks like he may well be, and the final couple of corners will beckon for him as well. His teammate 1:27.463, the last of the competitive runs, and Harry Jennings is going to hope to jump him. He's currently 1.8 seconds back, but with great potential to close in, and it is going to be an improvement. It's a 1:28.863, which gets him to 1.4 seconds behind Connor Stewart-Woodard in the first sector, and Ethan Shackleton is in the last, and he's just about to start his push lap, or his teammate, in fact, is in that second sector as well, and I think he's going to be diving into the pits. Indeed, he is, and so there's not many drivers out on the circuit. This is a bit of a lull in the action, which provides us the opportunity to have a conversation about the drivers and the team standings as we head into the British Grand Prix. So for the championship is going to be Andrei Chenkovan with 104 points. He's going to be significantly ahead of Stephen Snell, who's going to be 38 points behind Ethan Shackleton, just the 4 points off of him, and Dan Riley, just the 4 points off of him as well. So it's very close up at the top, but Andrei Chenkovan extending his advantage and producing the dominance that he's been able to over the last few seasons. Stuart Towers in that 5th place, and Benjamin D, of course, has left the league, but he's in 6th place, joint with Paul Garung now, who hopes to leapfrog him before the end of this race. Carl Stewart-Woodard in 8th, just the 1 point behind them, and you'd expect that he is going to be able to do so as well. Jack Weaver just the 3 points behind Stewart-Woodard and 4 behind Benjamin D and Paul Garung. He is likely to jump as well, as is Connor Stewart-Woodard, with only 11 drivers here today. Well, speaking of him, he crosses the line and he's up to 9th place with the slowest of the 27 times, but Ethan Shackleton invalidated once again, so he's really struggling in the start of this session. As in fact, 6th down to 12th place is split by just the 11 points, and if you take 5th into the equation, it's just 15. That's an unbelievable split between all of those drivers, and well, we could be seeing all of those positions switching. We've seen a lot of those positions switching over the last few rounds. You can see Stuart Towers gained on Benjamin D, Paul Garung, Carl Stewart-Woodard jumped Jack Weaver, and Burt Welly dropped down positions as well, with Connor and Brian holding station. And speaking of Brian Moore, he is not here this evening, unfortunately. He's decided that he's a little bit too busy with moving into uni, so it's understandable, but I mean, APC comes before everything. He's not racing this evening, nor is Lucas Aracini, and well, normally when drivers give us their absence notes and, you know, all these things like they're getting out of PE, you'd expect them to be kind of vague. You don't really know what's going on. Not in this case. Lucas Aracini is going to a talk by Mika Hakkinen and David Coulthard, and the fact that he's name dropped them, I mean, it's fair enough, to be honest. As, well, Ethan Shackleton, in fact, just to give you a little bit of information on the track side, is, well, he's set a 1:26.1 with his invalid lap. So there's 2 tenths out there for Ethan Shackleton. On even Paul Garung on that pole position, and everybody is out ready to get their second runs underway, and that's going to be Jack Weaver in fact completing his, and he gets a dead-on 1:27.0, and he's up to 6th place, jumping Kyle Stewart-Woodard. Looking at the constructor standing, it is of course going to be Cenkovan's team Ferrari with 166.24 ahead of Mercedes in 2nd place, and it looks like the gap between the 2 Ferraris and the 2 Mercedes this year has decreased. Of course, Andrea Cenkovan dominant as he was before, but Stephen Snell, Dan Riley, they are closing in, and I'd say that they are probably both quicker than Shackleton, and Stuart Towers is, well, he's trying to carry that Williams team at the moment. His teammate Harry Jennings just has the 3, and so they're down in 6th place, but it's actually McLaren in 3rd place. And once again, 3rd to 6th is incredibly close, 60 points to the McLaren team, 52. Is 8 behind for Kick Sauber. Racing Bulls and Williams find themselves in there as well, and Aston Martin, Paul Garung, being a lone soldier, gets the opportunity to try and fight with them as well, with of course 3 teams yet to get a score on the board: Red Bull, Alpine and Haas, with absolutely nothing so far this season, with no drivers having raced for them, so it's unsurprising, and still on the search for Paul Garung's teammate, but taking back. Second run's underway, and it's going to be the 2 Mercedes crossing the line. Stephen Snell getting a bit of aid from Dan Riley down towards Copse Corner, and that's going to be a huge advantage for the Mercedes to take out of it, and we'll see what he's going to be able to do in this second sector. He was down a little bit in the first one by less than 1/10 of a second, and in the second sector, is it an improvement? Yes, it is. 3/10. That's a huge gain, so maybe there was a mistake compounded with Dan Riley's slipstream, so Stephen Snell could be on for a pole position here if he can find another 10th. He's currently 0.115 behind Garung, and around the final corner he comes then, and getting the power down, a little bit of riding the curb, so he might have lost a bit of time there, but it doesn't matter, because no, he's not going to take pole position. A 1:26.5 is going to slot him into P2. Dan Riley's going to come around as he's actually dropped to P3, and Cenkovan's up to the pole position with a 1:26.1. That's the Andrea Cenkovan we expected to see this evening, and that is quicker than Ethan Shackleton's invalid lap, so that is just a demonstration of the pace that he has got. And Andrea Cenkovan pole position so far, and that's going to look like a difficult lap to beat, especially with the top 5 drivers all within the 1:26s as it stands. Of course, there's 8 tenths between Cenkovan and the driver in the last positions on the 26s, Bert Welly, who's got a 1:26.971. Dan Riley not gaining in that first sector, and I don't think he'll be able to gain any more, as Bert Welly does come up to the line, improves by 2 tenths of a second, and leapfrogs Dan Riley, and remains ahead of the likes of Jack Weaver and everybody else who has moved up into the low 1:27s, but not quite yet into the 1:26s. Kyle Stewart-Woodard deciding to go for a little bit of lawn mowing. What he's done there is he's decided to warm up his tyres by getting a bit of grass on them. He's actually come into the pit, so it doesn't matter anywhere. But that's Kyle Stewart-Woodard into the pit lane. Harry Jennings not improving in the first sector. He's 0.08 of a second down, and the Williams is currently trying to improve on his 1:28.8, which sees him 1 point. We'll give him it. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. 1.2.5 seconds down on Krypton, aka Connor Stewart-Woodard, but he can't do so as he invalidates into Maggots, and so he doesn't improve on his lap time. Of course he doesn't, and well, the final runs are getting set to begin with 4 minutes left in the session, and Andrea Cenkovan continues to lead the way, as he has done many a time this season. A 1:26.152 sees him 2 tenths ahead of everyone else. Harry Jennings is going to go for another lap, so we're going to watch on board, in fact. No, we're not. We're going to watch on board now with the Williams as he heads around the final corner to start his qualifying lap, which is expected to be the last opportunity that he is going to get, unless he's treating this as an extended practice session and he's fueled up the car quite significantly. Not sure whether that is what he's done. Either way, he heads around the first few corners on this racetrack, and of course heads through turns 1, 2, 3 and 4, hoping to gain time on his 1:28.863, which sees him 2.7 off of Cenkovan's pole position. First sector then, as he improved? No, he's still 4 tenths down. So Harry Jennings really struggling here around the Silverstone circuit. So we're going to switch to watching Daniel Riley in the second sector. Has he improved? Doesn't look like he has. It's a 1:04, 1:08. And so he gets a 1 minute increase on his previous time. A 1.3 minute increase to be specific and to be incremental. And I'm sure he's going to go once again as we've got Jack Weaver and Stuart Towers on the circuit, on their outlaps. And it's the opportunity for them to get into the 126s. Also crucial 126s. And Jack Weaver is exactly dead on outside. 1,000th of a second needed in terms of improvement to get up there and to gain positions around the final corner then. And he's going to start what will be his final run with 2 minutes and 15 seconds left in the session. And, well, the Kick Sauber heads through the first corner trying to throw his car absolutely everywhere. Of course, he's the only Kick Sauber driver this evening. He's trying to carry his team, and he heads through the first few corners, just trying to maximise the speed out of the green machine as he heads towards the straight now, and will open up the DRS for the first time on this lap. He'll open it up for the first time on this lap, but it's not the first time he's used it. He's improving by a 10th and some change. It's a 10th and a quarter roughly in the first sector, and around the second sector he's going to try and find even more time. But he'll need to find about a second if he wants to challenge Chenkovan. I think Chenkovan might have some improvement in the tank as well, which will scare the rest of the grid. But then it's another 3-4 tenths back to Paul Garung. So, I mean, it's only about 9 tenths Jack Weaver will need to challenge for that pole position, or at least challenge for that front row, with pole position seemingly always locked out by Chenkovan, but we'll see where the Kick Sauber is able to go. Second sector then is going to be split, and it's going to be time lost as Daniel Riley is retired from the session as, well, he was coming out of the pit lane, so not sure quite what's happened there, but Daniel Riley has called it quits. I think potentially a disconnection as Jack Weaver was improving by 0.019 in the final couple of corners back in for the number 72. Is this going to be an improvement? No, it's not a huge airtime moment, and he's into the wall and out of this qualifying session. So that is very disappointing, and that's going to be a peak of 6th place for the man that looked like he had so much more left in the tank, but he is down and out. And, well, he is going to peak at 6th place as Dan Riley is going to peak at 3rd or 5th place on the 3rd row of the grid. And that is that for the Mercedes and the Kick Sauber as he now retires from this session. The final runs have started, the final laps have started, but Harry Jennings is coming towards what looks like maybe the end of his, or maybe he's got one more in the tank. I'm not sure whether he would have fueled up that much, but it's around the final corner for him, and it's going to be a 1:32.482. So disappointing then, and maybe that was giving himself the opportunity to go for one more lap. Chenkovan, of course, is going to be in the first sector and trying to beat his time as the checkered flag is waved. Ethan Shackleton, his teammate, just behind, and potentially will be picking up some slipstream from him at some point on this lap. But Chenkovan is a little bit down. The first driver on the laps, is it Kyle? No, it's not. It's Connor Stewart Woodard. And, well, he is going to be the first one by quite a distance to set his final lap time. The checkered flag, as I said, has waved, and it's the end of the session for Riley and Jack Weaver, but nowhere near the end of the session for Connor, who's 700 or 70 tenths up on his previous time. And this could be an absolutely incredible leap up the field for somebody who's not necessarily known to be up there with the pace of the Mercedes or the Ferraris. At the moment, he's on track to get past one of them in Daniel Riley, and he will be confirmed past him if he crosses the line with a better time, and he does. It's 4th on the grid, provisionally at least, for Connor Stewart Woodard. What has Paul Garung got in answer to Chenkovan's lap time? He was improving, he has improved, but it's not enough to catch up to the leader's lap time. He comes into the pits, he will not be improving. Now around the final corner is Shackleton. There was time in the lap, and there was time to find, and he's found it. 3rd place on the grid. Kyle is invalidated. He won't be improving, and it's down now to the 2 Williams. Stewart won't be improving. Has Harry got anything left? No, he hasn't. So qualifying has ended, and it's going to be Andrei Chenkovan to take that pole position away. 2nd place for Paul Garung, a surprise podium from the Aston Martin. 3rd place for Ethan Shackleton, and Stephen Snell returning to form with a 4th. Burt Welly in 5th, and Connor Stewart Woodard in 6th place. I'd say that's probably the closest he's been to pole position, not only in terms of the positioning, but also in terms of the lap time as well. Very, very good qualifying from him then, as he out-qualifies Dan Riley, who retired when coming out of the pits on his final run. Interesting. But either way, he retired. He didn't improve and he dropped down positions. He was made to pay and he dropped down to 7th, but it's Chenkovan on pole position by 0.082 of a second to Paul Garung in 2nd. 3rd place is going to be Ethan Shackleton, 2 tenths back, or almost 2.5 tenths back. Is it? No, 1.5 tenths back. Stephen Snell then 4th place and Burt Welly in 5th, outside of 5 tenths back on Chenkovan, showing how incredible that 26-1 is. Then Connor Stewart-Woodard in 6th, ahead of Dan Riley and Jack Weaver. Then Kyle Stewart-Woodard, Stuart Towers, and it's going to be Harry Jennings to round out the field for the British Grand Prix. But that is a very, very good qualifying session. And we are now back and ready to get underway here for the British Grand Prix in APC round number 6. We've got 11 drivers raring and ready to go on the grid. Connor Stewart-Woodard will be pumped from that final lap to send him up to 6th place on that grid. But Andrea Chenkovan equally will be pumped for that one as well. Dan Riley explaining why he retired. Well, it's because he picked used tyres for his final run and, well, just got annoyed with himself, I'm sure, and bottled it. But that is going to be an absolutely significant error for him. And that is going to be very difficult to recover from. But, of course, it's only 2 positions he's dropped, so it's 2 positions that he can make up now. As on the race start, he's going to have 2 different drivers for company in front of him in those positions he would have wanted. He's going to have Connor, and he's going to have Burt Welly as well in 6th and 5th, respectively. Stephen Snell in that 4th place. And it's going to be a double Ferrari podium, as it always seems to be here in APC. Those two very dominant at the top of the field. And, well, we're going to see if they're going to be able to convert that one to maybe a 1-2. Maybe they're able to get past Paul Garung, or maybe the Aston Martin is able to carry his team up and ahead of maybe Racing Bulls, maybe Williams, something along those lines. Of course, there's only one Racing Bull racing tonight, and the Williams have qualified last and second to last. There is an opportunity for Paul Garung to leapfrog if he gains 7 points on Williams or 12 points on Racing Bulls, and that would make it even closer in the Constructors, which is already incredibly tight. Then in the Drivers, it would be good for Burt Welly to get a result on the board, as well as Harry Jennings. Lucas Seracini is too busy talking to David Coulthard and Mika Hakkinen, probably asking why he's only got 8 points in the championship. But either way, he's going to be enjoying his evening and hopefully tuning into the stream at some point later. And yeah, we'll see what he's going to be able to do throughout the rest of the season. Of course, this is going to put him at a disadvantage, but we are going to head to the formation lap to get us underway, and this gives us an opportunity to have a look at the tyres. Mediums, the top 3, and for Connor Stewart-Woodard. Everyone else on a set of the hards. I think Connor's hoping for a good start to be able to maintain the position that he holds at the moment, and maybe even improve on it. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, they're going to take a trip around the 18 corners of the Silverstone circuit, and then, ladies and gentlemen, well, we will have action and we will have race day. Taking their time then. Andrew Chenkovan usually is straight off the line, straight away to try and kick off, and well, at the moment he's not doing that. He's taken his time, and well, what he's done there is allowed himself the opportunity to warm up his tyres a bit more. Maybe there's a little bit more gamesmanship going on. Maybe there's a little bit more preparation just for himself. And well, we'll see what he's able to do heading into race day, whether this does change his preparations. Because, of course, when you're so dominant in a championship, it gives you the chance to experiment. That's what Max Verstappen was able to do towards the latter half of 2023 with the setups, which might be why he wasn't so dominant heading into the next year. And that's what Lewis Hamilton did after 2021 into 2022. We don't talk about 2021 into 2022 when he, you know, they had all those new things where they just couldn't set themselves up. It just didn't work for them, and he was always the driver who decided, I'm going to take the gamble. I want to see how high I can get up the field. And unfortunately for him, it worked in Brazil, and that's it. But, you know, it is difficult to to gauge what's going to happen in those sorts of situations. And Andrei Chenkovan taking this one a little bit differently today, and we'll see what the Ferrari is going to be able to do. But he has shot off from the field now to prepare himself for the start. Lightning McQueen, the number 95 on the front row, alongside Paul Garung, and it's going to be Ferrari leading Ferrari away as Shackleton is in that third spot. Stephen Snell will be lining up in fourth, 3 positions ahead of his teammates, who should have really been challenging more for 5th place, but instead that position is taken by Burt Welly, and Connor Stewart-Woodard lines up in 6th. Then Jack Weaver, Kyle Stewart-Woodard, Stuart Sowers and Harry Jennings will round out the field. But the 5 red lights are about to come on here at Silverstone, and round 6 is ready to get underway. Andrei Chenkovan will lead us to the 5 red lights. And the action's underway. They had to wait, but they took the lights, and it's going to be Chenkovan with a great start off the line, and he leads into the first corner. Stephen Snell jumps Shackleton into 2nd place, as that's going to be Connor, unfortunately very far off the circuit, and Kyle with a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting. A terrible start for the Stewart-Woodards. Inside line for Stephen Snell, trying to hold that 3rd place despite Ethan Shackleton's better tyres, and he's managed to do so in the end. 3rd place is held, and Kyle drops down the order all the way to last place. So very, very unfortunate for the McLaren team, and they've dropped from what was, I believe, a 6th and a 9th all the way to 9th and 11th on this grid. I will check that. That's going to be 3 positions dropped for Connor, and yeah, it is going to be a 6th and a 9th down all the way to 9th and 11th, unfortunate then from those 2 drivers. But it's a good start for Chenkovan, who's able to try and increase his advantage at the top. Paul Garung in 2nd place, 8 tenths back, and Stephen Snell 6 tenths off of Garung, but crucially he's able to hold on to that position ahead of the Ferrari in 3rd place, and Shackleton will be chasing the Mercedes all the way down the straight and over the next few laps while these tyres are still the best ones, and he is he's in a good position to do so at the moment. Those mediums look very, very strong, as Jack Weaver looks strong on the back of Dan Riley at the moment, who didn't get off to the greatest launch, of course, was able to gain the position off of Stewart-Woodard, but wasn't able to do much else, and they end the first lap with Andrei Chenkovan in the lead of the race, and of course setting the fastest lap to boot and able to gain out of the DRS. Paul Garung, same thing on Stephen Snell, and that is a great start for them, although Paul Garung managed to make his way back into the DRS on Chenkovan, so he will have it into the first detection zone, I think, and the Aston Martin will potentially be able to get the chance to open up the rear wing and get himself going. Indeed he does, and well, Stephen Snell looks like he might have managed to, he didn't quite manage to creep into the DRS, and it's so crucial to stay in there the whole time. I mean, it's absolutely imperative on this year's game, especially to stay within the DRS, as Snell will be pushing so incredibly hard to catch right back up. But by pushing in the first couple of laps, what he's done there is he's managed to relieve the pressure from behind him. Has not just Chenkovan, but Garung as well, because Stephen Snell was off the back of them. However, Garung has dropped off, so maybe he's pushed just a little bit too far in the early portion of this race, and he now has to reel it back in. Trying to hold that DRS has ultimately cost him a bit of time, and Shackleton is going to get back through on Snell, and he's up into 3rd place and trying to chase for that 2nd once again, which is looking under threat. Dan Riley then around the outside of Burt Welly, he's up into 5th. Burt is going to look to the inside, he's going to have a little bit of a lag spike, and that might even allow Jack Weaver through. Indeed it does, and well, that's going to be the Kick Sauber up into 6th place, and Burt Welly down 2 as the 2nd lap has ended and 3rd lap begins, and it's the fastest lap for Ethan Shackleton. So, well, maybe Andrei Chenkovan is going to come under threat from his own teammates here today. We'll have to wait and see as, well, lap 3 is underway. And what a start Chenkovan has had. 1.7 seconds, the gap up the top. And Paul Garung tried all his might to keep up. But in the end, it cost him significantly. And he dropped down just a little bit. And so he's 1.7 seconds off of Chenkovan now. And Ethan Shackleton chasing him every single second of this lap time. Every single little increment of time will be absolutely massive in terms of the grand scheme of this race, because I mean, it's just about trying to maximize those tyres early on, and it's a great opportunity when you have that track position from the qualifying position. to try and really maximise it and get the most out of the position, which is why those few at the top have gone for the mediums. That's why Connor, who started so well, or at least in qualifying, was on those mediums, because you try and take advantage of it. Give it about 3 more laps, the hards are going to be quicker, and well, that's going to be an absolutely huge issue for them, as well, lap 4 is about to begin, and they're only a couple of laps away from the crossover points, and Paul Grant still losing time, but Shackleton losing time as well, and that might open up the door once again to Stephen Snell, who passed him on the start and felt, well, I don't know if he felt obliged to give it back, but it certainly didn't look like he put up much of a fight with Shackleton in the end, and so 4th place is still, it's the bogey position, it's where nobody wants to be. It was the banker, it was the one that no one wanted, and well, at the moment they're all trying to fight their way out of it. Stephen Snell in the best position to do so in a couple of laps time. Now, not so much. Jack Weaver chasing Dan Riley, looking to the inside. Is he going to go for it? He couldn't decide, but he is, in the end, going to go through. But Dan Riley giving him a right old squeeze. Jack Weaver giving him a little bit of a bump on the left rear on the exit, and that might open himself up. He looked for the switchback, but in the end, Dan Riley's tentativeness off the corner has somehow managed to work out in his favour. But this is the fight for P5, where they're really not keeping pace with the top 4, and so they are going to scrap it out, I think. I don't think there's going to be much of an opportunity for them to catch up to the top 4, so they are just going to keep fighting it out all the way to the line, and well, I don't blame them at all. I think it's a great opportunity for them to just have some real good fights with no pressure from in front. It's basically like being in the race lead, because they won't feel as though they'll be able to catch up anytime soon. Having said that, it's always on a podium, so there's benefits and negatives to these sorts of things. So, I mean, I get it, but also at the same time, it's difficult. Dan Riley, though, is catching. He's down to beneath 1 second, 2 seconds again, so I might be wrong. He might be pushing, and at the moment, the gap between himself and Jack Weaver is telling. Up to 1 second. Is he going to beat the DRS detection zone? I don't know. I think it's close, you know. I think it was 0.994. We'll see whether Jack Weaver does pick up that DRS down the next straight, excuse me. It's not going to. So, Dan Riley pushing has worked out in his favour in terms of the fact that Weaver hasn't been able to get back in, and actually he's allowed the kick Sauber to get back up, and he's just the 4/10 behind now, and Dan Riley just 2 seconds off of Snell, so maybe he's pushed all he can. It feels like there is a maximum that these drivers can push today, and that's what has been demonstrated by Paul Garung and by Dan Riley over the last couple of laps. There is only a certain amount these drivers can push before it becomes over the limit, you know, and well, it's difficult to strike that balance between pushing and conserving. Dan Riley looks so quick in the corners, to be fair, so that might be where that one lies, but it means that he has a deficit down the straights, which would be covered by DRS, but it's not. Shackleton gets past Paul Garung for P2, but it looks like he sent it way too far into the corner, and it's going to be the outside line for Paul Garung into the final 3 on this racetrack. Little bit of a lock-up from Shackleton, which continues to open the door for Garung and makes the Aston Martin feel as though there's a move on. It's going to continue down to the main straight, but Paul pulls out and decides to go for that P2 via the DRS route. Did you get it? Paul pulls out. No, wasn't funny. Got it. But the DRS is going to be opened up after turn number 4, and Garung is going to get the chance to go for it again, and you can already see him setting the move up, going wide out of the corner, and he'll open himself up down towards the straight and try to make his way through. You can see this is a great camera to see the game with the DRS. That's absolutely humongous, and he's on the outside. Interesting that he went for the outside, but Shackleton, I think, defended to the inside so early that Garung had nowhere else to go. And it was a very solid defence from the Ferrari at the moment, who's trying to protect that one too. Shackleton, though, 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. That could be huge towards the end of the race, especially if it continues the way that it's going right now. Very wide as well for Stephen Snell in the background as he's trying to keep up. And in the meantime, Dan Riley has pushed successfully back into the DRS. So scratch everything that I was saying. Bun that fam, because Dan Riley is back into the DRS and Jack Weaver is almost outside of it again. He's pushed so hard. I'm not sure how he's managed that. It's the balance is being struck very well. I said it was a difficult balance to strike. And, well, Dan Riley is managing to balance that very, very well at the moment. Lap number 7 is about to get underway, and this is where the hards are better than the mediums. So Stephen Snell's Dan Riley, this is your time to get a move on and get past Shackleton and Paul Garung. And is it going to be Stephen Snell who makes the next overtake on this racetrack? I think that it is going to be the case. But, yeah, the Mercedes two teammates are doing well at the moment. Not quite as well as the Ferraris, although, well, Shackleton, he is down. He is dropping down the position because of that penalty. So I think, if my calculations are correct, he does drop all the way off this pack and down to 7th place. But, of course, there is 20 laps to go. So it's not quite going to work out that way. But that's still not promising signs, especially early on, because having no penalty gives you a little bit of a leeway, especially having no warnings, gives you a little bit of a leeway to not do what you like. That's the wrong way of phrasing it, but it's a bit like you can do a little bit more, as that's an inside line move for Stephen Snell. I didn't realise quite how close he was to Paul Garung, but he's managed to get through in Cops. What a move there. Unbelievable stuff, Jeff, from Snell, who's up to 3rd place, and that's broken the momentum of the Aston Martin, and Dan Riley chases him behind. Can he get through on the Aston Martin and make it double Mercedes delight and double Aston Martin, well, negative feelings? I couldn't quite think of the word that I was thinking of. It will come to me in a couple of laps' time, but either way, Dan Riley is through. The final corner does beckon, and Dan Riley is able to shut the move off before Paul even goes for it. And they're going to head on to lap number 8 now with a completely different order. This is where I said the crossover point was now. It's proven to be right, and Paul Garung losing that pace that he had at the start of the race. And that is not a promising sign for him or for Ethan Shackleton either, who of course leads this pack, as that's a late send from Jack Weaver. He can see the pace deficit from the hards now, or the pace advantage from the hards on the mediums, and he's trying to get through, looking at that inside, but not able to punch his way through. And on the inside once again is the Kick Sauber, but once again defence from the Aston Martin is strong and holds the position for the time being. Is the exit opened up for the Kick Sauber? No, and so he will stay behind, and that's lost potentially the DRS and all of that. Although you can see on the brief glimpse of the dashboard, he is pushing as Garung using that ERS, and I'm surprised he's not had any warnings. I'm surprised only Shackleton has managed to pick up warnings with how wide some of these drivers are coming out of Cops Corner, but it shows how very hard they are all pushing on this circuit, and at the moment it appears to be working. For some at least. For Garung, not so good. And Stephen Snell, it's working absolutely perfectly. He almost pulled alongside Shackleton in the end, who dives in on lap 7 of this race. Is that early? I think that's early. I mean, Chenkovan's continued, as has the Aston Martin of Paul Garung. And it's not the last lap, Ethan, so you're not going to take the win by doing that. But he's into the pits, as is Stuart Towers from his hards. So must have been damage or something. I did see position swapping down the bottom. Unfortunately, we weren't able to capture it. But yeah, it looks like Towers is in. Is he going to be switching that front wing off of the Williams? Let's see. No. This is just going to be a regular stop for the 25. So intriguing pit stop there for Towers. Maybe this this circuit is taking a hit on those tyres. And, well, we will see towards the end of the race whether he does come in again. He's onto a set of the mediums, so surely he's not going to be able to drag those out for 20 or for 17 laps even on this circuit. That's right, we're over a third of the way now through our British Grand Prix and through race number 6 here in the APC calendar. And, well, you know what that means? That means that we are almost halfway through this season. It's flown by. And, well, race number 7 will come next week at Belgium before a week off. Before we go to round number 8 at the Netherlands. But we're almost halfway through the APC season, and that is interesting. We'll have our first break week then, and well, it's certainly going to be... I mean, the fact that we've still got all these drivers so close in the championship means that something special is going to happen, especially if Andrew Chenkovan gets, I don't know, struck down by North Centennials. Just saying. As, well, Burtwell, he picks up a 10-second time penalty. Chenkovan is in as well. And, well, that is going to be the time that he needs to push in this race and get off of a set of those hard compound, or onto a set of those hard compound tyres, off of the set of the mediums, and he's going to try and fly on those tyres straight out of the gate. But he's onto a set of the mediums, as is Jack Weaver. So maybe a two-stop strategy is viable. I was talking about Stuart Towers only going, 7 laps on those tyres, but in the end, a two-stop might be the viable strategy, you know, when you're really not able to manage them. That looks like what we might be doing. Connor, same thing. He's gone mediums to mediums, and so at the end of this race, he's going to be doing hards. So, or maybe even softs at that point. It'd be difficult to push them, but yeah, I mean, you can always try it. Why not? Because he had such a good start. He had such good pace on those softs in the qualifying, and he just didn't have it on the mediums so far, and he still hasn't had it on the mediums. So maybe it was just a clutch lap from him. But yeah, we'll see as to whether he is going to be able to pull this one off and keep that pace up throughout this race, or pick it up at least that he had at the starters into the pit lane. It doesn't say now. It says. But that's going to be 21 cloves of garlic, Paul Garung into the pit lane and making a switch from those mediums to the hards. Viable, I think, for Chenkovan and Paul Garung to do a one-stop. Genuinely, I think so. Nobody else, apart from, of course, those hard runners that aren't into the pit lane just yet. And Harry Jennings is in for a set of, I'd imagine, the mediums. But Stephen Snell, Dan Riley, Carl Stewart Woodard. There is scope for a one-stop if you can manage your tyres to the end. And I think that's what we're going to be seeing. We do have those two drivers in the pits, and it's going to be out of the pit lane then for Paul Garung, who's going to come out in 7th place. Softs for Harry Jennings. So Harry Jennings even. No, it is Jennings. So interesting for the Williams to go onto a set of the soft compound tyres at any point of the race, let alone this. I tried, I'll be completely honest. I tried a minute ago to try and justify anybody going onto the softs just as a, you know, not keeping interest, but, I mean, really? Anyway. But, I mean, yeah, it's very, very difficult to see how that could be a viable strategy, but what do I know? That's why I'm sitting up here in the warm comms box with that into the pits for Stephen Snell, and I think that confirms it's going to be a two-stop for everybody on this field. And what do I know? That's why I'm here. That's why I'm not down there. And it's going to be Dan Riley continuing on and taking the race lead. As you can see, a little bit of wear on the left front of Stephen Snell. So maybe I'm just having a look at an outdated set of data on an outdated set of tyre models. Fastest lap then for Andrew Chenkovan in the Scuderia Ferrari HP, as he's up into 3rd place now because he's passed Stephen Snell. Shackleton gains that position as well, and I think even Burt Welly and maybe even Paul Garung are going to come out ahead of the Mercedes. It's going to be close for Snell and the Aston Martin, but it is going to be Stephen Snell who is right up ahead. But Paul has had a lap to set himself up to get those tyres in condition, and there is no better time than now to make an overtake on the Dutchman in the Mercedes. But we never thought we'd be saying that sentence this year. Unfortunately, it's not Max Verstappen, it is Stephen Snell, and that is going to be Paul Garung through. And he's made that look, at least, very simple. What he's done there is he's made that look very, very simple. And that is a talent that a lot of drivers don't have. They can't. Sometimes they make it look incredibly difficult. Snell there made it look, or not Snell even, Paul Garung on Snell made it look very, very easy. And we're about halfway through this race, and so I had a thought, because of course we brought in the driver updates over the last few races, as Carl Stewart is going to defend against Chenkovan, I think, and he's on older sets of hards. Chenkovan is on a younger set of hards. Is he going to defend, or is he just going to let him go? Or is Chenkovan just going to fly past him with raw pace anyway? I think Kyle is going to defend this one. As Schenkovan looks to the inside of the first corner, doesn't decide to go for the move, and that means he's going to slingshot himself into turns 2, 3 and 4. But the DRS not only will allow him to get past Kyle, but it'll hopefully allow him to slingshot himself and get a little bit of a gap up on everybody else. And so I think there's benefits to sitting behind for the time being. But it brings me back to a good point on Kyle, and he does actually let him go in the end, pulling off to the side, getting a poor exit and allowing him through. Kyle's thoughts pre-race were, well, the first thought was the questions are preset. The first question is, how are you feeling about the previous race? Now, we know Kyle had a very good result last time. He was angry because, of course, he has high expectations, and I don't blame him. You know, when you're in a position like that and you don't get the opportunity, you feel unfairly. I'm not casting aspersions either way, but if you feel unfairly about it, then you're not going to be happy about it. But he's talking about it in this post-race interview, and he's saying he still feels like Stephen did not need to prevent him from chasing down the podium when he had old tyres and a penalty to the detriment of his own race. Now, not to say anything, but Kyle did defend a couple of corners. Of course, he let him go in the end, but I think Schenkovan at least will feel as though he was slowing him down, and or Kyle with the penalty and older tyres. It could be considered that, but at the same time, I mean, he did let him go down the straight, which is technically the first opportunity that he could have. So, I mean, I can see either side of it, and I think that's potentially less, not blatant's the wrong word, but it was worth it for Stephen Snell to have a go, and for this time, Kyle just let him go. But yeah, that was his first opinion. And he said, I do, however, understand that racing is like this sometimes, and he did nothing wrong. So, you know, flip-flops, you win, you lose, and that is the case in that one. He also thought that he's not been able to find that magic sweet spot, and I think he can correct me if I'm wrong, and of course he watches broadcasts live, I think, and he also watches them back. I think that was potentially the best sweet spot he's found on F1 25 by a margin, because he was so much quicker than he has been throughout any of the other races, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying. He probably might mind me saying, but he found that sweet spot a lot more than he has in any other races, and it ended up coming off for him, and it'll be difficult for him to do the same things. Dan Riley off the circuit, he's got a puncher. He's tried to push these hards to the end of the stint, and Dan Riley has managed to pick up a puncture on lap 13, and that will be a scary time for Kyle Stewart-Woodard, because Dan's done the same age of tyres. That is devastating for a man who had such good pace in the race. Of course, qualifying did not go the way he wanted, but the race seemed to be, and he led quite a few laps. But he's into the pit lane now, and he's onto a set of the softs, and well, that's disappointing for the Mercedes driver, and he'll drop to the back of the field, and he's lost so much time in that incident. But for Daniel Riley, that is very, very difficult, and I'm sure we'll get the opportunity to speak to him at the end of the race about his true emotions in that. What he's done there is he's possibly pushed the car too hard, and that'll be scaring the life out of Kyle for this lap, because of course he'd seen that happen, didn't quite understand what had happened, and now he's at a point where he basically has to pit this lap, because we'll watch on board how knackered do these tyres look. Not terrible. They don't look that bad, but that might just be because of how quickly they're running. As that's going to be Stephen Snell overtaking Paul Garung for that 5th place. But yeah, Kyle is going to potentially need to come into the pits on this lap, and well, that's going to be a scary moment. This is where Dan had his puncher. He's surely going to come in on this lap. No, he's going for the one stop. He's surely going for the one stop. We are missing, by the way, a masterclass from Stephen Snell, who's gotten past Burt Welly and Paul Garung on the same lap, and he moves up to 4th place, especially considering Burt Welly is on a set of the mediums. So 2 very, very good moves from Stephen Snell there to catch up to his old foe from last week, Kyle Stewart-Woodard. But yeah, I mean, a very good race from Stephen Snell, and so far, fingers crossed, You know, nothing else to be said. Not calling out a rapture or anything. But Snell is in a comfortable position, and I don't know what I meant by that rapture comment. Anyway, Stephen Snell is in that 4th place and looking like he might pick up a podium. And Carl Stewart will be the driver, of course, to seed it when he comes into the pit lane. But Burt Welly and Paul Garung are in behind, and the Aston Martin, whose qualifying pace hasn't quite turned out into race pace, will be looking to get past Welly, who's had quite the opposite effect. I think he's had a pretty good race in comparison to the qualifying session. And he was hoping for 8th and above. He spoke to us in the pre-season questionnaire, and he said he's looking to get P8 and above, and at the moment P5. Of course, penalties will drop him down to P6, but still, P6 isn't too bad, and he's feeling mentally more competitive. Apparently, that's what he's told us, as that's into the pit lane for Ethan Shackleton, and Kyle Stewart Wood continuing again. When does the McLaren either come into pits or get a punch? I think, to be fair, with the increased... Oh, that left front's looking a bit shaky. With the increased tyre allowance this year, you get up to about 90% before you get tyre. I think it might actually be 80 or 90, something like that, for when you get a penalty. Well, not a penalty, a puncture even. Or when you're in that region. It allows you to do a little bit more with it as Dan Riley gets the fastest lap and moves past a couple of drivers. Carl Stewart would have moved out of the way, and that's exactly what he would have asked Ian Snell to do a couple last week even, but I won't keep going on about that because I'm trying to dig myself out of a hole. Okay, I'm trying to dig myself out of a hole because I basically said that he held up gentlemen. I'm not saying that he did. I'm not saying that he didn't. I'm just saying that Kevin would have felt as though Kyle would have gotten away earlier. But of course, I'm sure that it's, Van won't have been too butthurt about it. He's still 15 seconds up the road, so at that point, who really cares? But yeah, he should be struggling on these tyres now. I'm shocked he hasn't got a puncture now. Dan Riley picked one up, I'd imagine, as soon as he got into that range. It's still going for Kyle. And is he diving in on this lap? Yes, he is. So he survived to lap 18. That's an unbelievable stint from Kyle. And hats off to him. It's like, was it Alex Albon at the Australian Grand Prix where he did all of the laps barring one on the same set of tyres? This is what that feels like because there's higher tyre wear. So that is a very, very solid stint. And he can be very proud of that as he switches onto the mediums. And that is the ideal strategy that you'd be going for, I think. Maybe a little bit of a longer stint on the mediums, but... still, not a bad shift, and he's going to have fresh tyres at the end of this race when he comes out of the pit lane. In comes Stuart Towers as well for a new set of medium boots, of yellow boots, and he'll be happy with that one. Yeah, it's been an up and down season for Kyle, of course. Austria last time out, strong result, wasn't happy with what happened, but the week before picked up, was it 24 seconds worth of penalties? So this race has been a little bit more calm. I think we'll be happy with that one. You can see those tyres a lot fresher, a lot shinier, and a lot more ready for action. We'll stop running on board with him because we've ridden on board. We've given him enough screen time. We've just switched over at the right time to see a very worn Harry Jennings get passed by Jack Weaver on a fresh new white set of boots on the mediums, and that's a very, very good move from him that allows him to open up the opportunity to try and catch Kyle if he has that pace towards the end of this race. Just having a look at some of the other interviews that we've had, and Paul Garung was feeling great about the podium last time out, and he'll be feeling pretty great about the podium that he's almost guaranteed to get this time out. Not to curse it or anything, just saying, not to curse it or anything, but he's in a very, very good position at the moment. He's hoping his nerves are somewhat decreased, which I can imagine they would after getting that first podium on the board, and he's got new pedals, new wheelbase, new wheel, and it looks like that has worked for him, as that's Riley and Jennings into the pit lane. But what's his home race, Paul Garung? It's a home race for a number of the drivers. Paul, Connor? I mean, I believe Connor lives in the UK. I know he's Barbudian, but, I believe he lives in the UK. I know Kyle does. Ethan Shackleton, Jack Weaver, Burt Weller, I believe is British as well, and then Stuart Towers and Dan Riley and Harry Jennings. So basically, everyone apart from the top 2 are British, and if that tells you something about, you know, the quality of British drivers, you know, we need to step up our game. But no, they're doing a very good job at the moment, and well, it can bring you benefits or negatives running at your home race. I mean, the pressures of feeling like you have to perform well here because it is your home race, a sort of, you know, it can allow a driver to crumble under pressure, as Stephen Snell is into the pit lane now, and he'll be switching from the hards to a set of the mediums, maybe. But well, 3-second time penalty. We'll get a penalty update in a minute. But for now, we are seeing the mediums booted on for Stephen Snell for the last 7 laps of this race. But it can increase the pressure, but it can also decrease it. You know the conditions, you know the track, and you've learnt the car, so there's a certain point to which it feels like it should be second nature to drive around the circuit. And that's partially where the pressure comes from. I mean, there's a lot of pressure, because there's that, and then there's the fact that, you know, home fans are expecting you to perform. So, hey, these drivers at the moment performing well, and it is it's a Briton and a Barbudian fighting it out for the final podium position. As Ethan Shackleton's up to P3, but of course with a penalty, and that allows us to have a look at the penalty update. 3 seconds for Shackleton, Stuart Woodard, Weaver, Welly, and Jennings, but for nobody else. I believe who was it that got a 10-second? I think it might have been, was it Burt Welly? Someone got a 10-second, but they've served it in the pit lane either way. So I think they got a 10-second. Either way, nobody has one now. And, well, they are going to continue on to the last few laps of this race. We're going to be seeing any more pit stops, surely, from Connor. He will be the next one in puncture range. But with Stuart Woodard's luck today, he'll be absolutely fine. Ethan Shackleton, very different preparation, because I'd imagine Paul Garone has spent the last week on his new pedals, wheel and base. Shackleton has spent the last week getting drunk with the Germans, drinking a lot of their beer, pre-gaming for Oktoberfest, even though he's not there anymore. But you know, either way, did a lot of drinking in Germany with their superior beer. I can't say either way, because I don't drink beer. So, but you know, take our reigning Constructors' Champions word for it. Berlin beer is better. Do you like the alliteration there? That was pretty fun. But yeah, very different race preparations. But again, excited that it's his home race. Similar answer to Paul Grung. Excited that it's his home race. Bit, you know, it'll be a bit shaky getting that sharpness back up. Of course, having a drink will help you just to take the edge off a little bit. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, looking good for a podium, especially with the gap he's got over Stephen Snell. But Snell might break that in, especially with the 3 seconds that Shackleton has. He says he would like to fight for the win, as he loves Silverstone and tends to have good pace here. He's not shown bad pace here today. It's actually the top 3, the top 4 that we saw in qualifying. So, may as well not have had the race, lads. Look at that. Top 4 and Mr. Taddo. I've never seen this before in my life. No, I thought it was completely replicated. I thought Kyle had gone up 4, Connor had gone down 4, Jack Weaver had gone up 2, Stuart Towers had gone down 2, and then Burt Welly had gone up 2, and Dan had gone up 2. But no, that's not what happened, especially with Dan getting past Stuart Towers. Not quite what happened. And Dan Riley is, of course, as I say, up to 8th place, and he'll be chasing down Burt Welly. He'll be trying to get back into that DRS range, although he won't need it. But I think he'll be targeting, at this point at least, I think he'll be targeting that, probably even that 6th place. Whether he can offset that gap between himself and Jack Weaver, I don't know. But that would be the target, and that wouldn't be a bad recovery from what he's done previously. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. There's too much action going on this evening. And, well, we're unfortunately almost at the end of it. I know. It's one of those things where... It's one of those things where you sort of get so hyped up for a race to start that it feels like, we're done. It just ticked over an hour. Oh, we're done. You know? And it's weird because there's no concept of time in races. It's laps. Well, to a certain extent. In this sort of thing where there's no red flags, there's no rain delays, anything like that, there's laps. And it's very different to like a football match. I play cricket. It's very different it's very similar actually to a cricket match, even where there's no set end. Somebody could say, when's the Grand Prix finish? You can be like, about this time. And unless there's any significant delays in like football or rugby or hockey, or pretty much any other sport, barring tennis or something like that, you know when it's going to end. A race, never know what's going to happen. And especially because if you say when a race is going to end, you could be like, oh yeah, that's 26 laps. That'll be, what, a 1 minute 30 lap time. So that'll be, testing my mental maths, 26 minutes plus like 26 30-second stints. So that'll be like 45 to 50 minutes. Then you got a safety car. But now the laps are 3 minutes long. And there's 3 of them. And you're like, oh, okay. So now I'm going to be an extra, 7.5 minutes or whatever that is. That's nowhere near 7.5 minutes. 5.5, no, 4.5 minutes. That was shocking. That was horrendous. That's almost as bad as my Zamball math, real ones know. That's almost as bad as my Zamball math. Goodness me. I need to go back to school, I think, in a student capacity. Oh dear. Anyway, what I do know is we've got just a couple of laps to go. And I say what I do know, and then I instantly say something I don't know. So, something that always trips me out when I'm commentating or when I'm watching a race is the amount of laps that are left. Because it says 24 out of 26, and you do, 26 minus 24 is 2, so you've got 2 laps. Nope, 3 laps left. It took me a long time to work that out. When I first started commentating as well, I was just like, what the hell am I doing? It was easier when, like 2007 broadcast. I don't know when they got rid of it. They should bring it back when they had a count down instead of a count up. But they should so bring that back because that was so useful for idiots like me. Although having said that, same issue because it still says no laps left. And did it say no laps left and then it was the final lap? I can't imagine it did. I don't know. It also makes people feel like they're willing the race to end, which is not really the point. But either way, back to my point. That was race to end. It's been a good one. It's been a strategically interesting battle. How the hell neither Stuart Woodards have picked up no puncher, I don't know. Well, what they've done there is they've had very, very good tyre management, and you got to respect them for that. Yeah. Sorry, I should explain that. I should explain the bit that I'm doing because I've done that multiple times this evening. I'm not going to because it's difficult to explain. It's just some guy who explains things, and he always says what he's done there. So yeah, and what I've done there is I've explained a joke about explaining a joke. It's like joke inception. He's also got an accent, which is why I do that, But it'll be interesting for anyone watching the stream back. Hi, VOD watchers. Hi, Kyle. I know you watch the VODs. Don't know who else watches the VODs. But we get a decent number of people watching the VODs as far as I'm aware, at least. We got 13 views on last week's VOD, with the sprint included as well. We got 10 on the week before. We got 15 on the week before. That's more than the drives on the grid. I tell you what, I don't watch them back. Nothing against the league. It's something against the commentator. I hate that guy. But yeah, I don't watch them back. Kyle does, but I don't know if Kyle does after we post them. That means that with the 15 as an example, we've got somebody watching the races who didn't feature in the race, you know, and that's a weird thing. Because most of the races that I've covered have like people who've done things. That makes it sound bad. They have people who've like done things in the race. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's weird. It's weird, bro. It's the final lap of the race, by the way. Moving on from the Black podcast. Shouldn't say that. Moving on from the podcast, and we've got our lead driver into the final sector. What an unbelievable drive. What an unbelievable shift Andrew Chenkovan has put in. He is 13.6 seconds ahead of Paul Garung, and it's not even close. He's conserved over the last few laps because he's been scared of a puncture. Doesn't need to be scared of a puncture with the driver and the man that Andrew Chenkovan is, and he will come around the final corner and he will win yet again in APC. The title looked close, but he's snatching it away from anybody else's grasp, and the Ferrari wins yet another race here at Silverstone, and it's going to be second place to the home man. He was happy with the podium last time out, and with every podium, his excitement grows. It's Paul Garung in P2, third for Ethan Shackleton. But he's going to have, at the end of this race, just the 3 seconds of penalties, which is just about going to edge him ahead of Stephen Snell in fourth place. So it's 2 Britons on the podium, but not on the top step. 2 Ferraris on the podium as well, which is a good weekend for them. Jack Weaver then will come home in 5th place, and because of the penalty for Kyle Stewart-Woodard, he will maintain it, will the kick Sauber. Kyle follows through in 6th, and Burt Welly in 7th place with a 3-second time penalty. He's going to drop behind Dan Riley, who got very unlucky. I'm sure that his tyres probably literally just ticked over what they were supposed to be at before puncture region, as the last few drivers are going to cross the line. Stuart Towers ahead of Connor Stewart, who had an awful day at the office. A great qualifying, but then just ran wide at turn 1, and his issues compounded. And from there, he was never really able to come back. And so he finished in the final points position in 10th place. And the final finisher of all is going to be Harry Jennings, who, of course, I mean, he's had an all right day today, all things considered. But all right in terms of the pace that he's had. But in terms of everything else, it's just not been his day. I think he accidentally switched onto the softs, to be honest with you. And that is just where his issues really have been run. And we're going to get the opportunity to speak to some of the drivers in just a couple of moments' time. But for now, that's going to be the end of a very, very interesting British Grand Prix, where once again we had a driver dominating at the very top of the field. And we'll get the chance to speak to a number of these drivers who raced this evening. And, who are we going to be able to get the chance to start with? Nobody yet has jumped in. Surely they're going to jump in at some point soon. You would think, at least, that they're going to jump in at some point soon, and then we'll be able to drag them straight in. But just for now, driver of the day, apparently, Jack Weaver. Not sure. I'm not sure about that one. I mean, 8th to 5th describes itself, but that's going to be Andrew Chenkovan winning the race. 2nd place for Paul Garung, and 3rd for Ethan Shackleton, rounding out the podium. 4th place for Stephen Snell, and Jack Weaver will finish in 5th. 6th place for Carl Stewart-Woodard, 7th for Dan Riley, and then Burt Welly, Stuart Towers, Connor Stewart-Woodard, and Harry Jennings round out the grid. But we're going to get the opportunity straight away to jump in and speak to Dan Riley, who had the pace, but just didn't seem like he had the luck today, did it?
Just disastrous. We'll get to qualifying. I think I was good in qualifying. I looked pretty fast, but unfortunately I just didn't select the right tyres. But qualifying was a bit of a disaster for me, 7th. And then we actually had a really good start. I was cutting through the field really nice. I was going for the one stop. I told Stephen before the race, one stop. I tested it. And it was much, much faster. So I was doing the one stop and I just got a puncture literally when I was about to go in. That kind of ruined my race. And then because I was like panicking because of the, puncture, I didn't realise I had soft selected on, so then I was on the soft, which even was so worse. I had to pit again, really. So yeah, it was just so unlucky of a race. I think I definitely could have got a podium, probably even second, I reckon. But I don't know. It just wasn't my weekend, really.
Yeah, it certainly didn't seem so, and I did think, and I think I did call that you didn't intend on going on the soft compound tyres to start with. But, I mean, overall, while the luck wasn't on your side, are you happy with at least the pace that you showed this weekend? Does that promise for the races to come?
Yeah, no, I was pretty happy with the performance from the pace. Usually it's my qualifying pace, which is really good. Not my race pace, but I thought my race pace was actually really good today. Like I said again, I think potential podium. I do think I could have got second. I'm not sure how far ahead the Aston Martin and Shackleton were, but yeah, I think the pace I had. I mean, yeah, it's just what it is at the end of the day. But yeah, I was actually quite happy with the pace I had.
And looking forward to next week, then, how are you feeling about the Belgian Grand Prix?
I mean, last season's Belgian Grand Prix was it was a race to forget. If I remember correctly, I think I spun on the opening lap. I think the sprint race wasn't actually that good for me as well. So yeah, it's not really a weekend I'm looking forward to get back to. I'm not really too strong in Belgium, in my opinion, but we'll just have to we'll definitely race next week. See how it is. But yeah, we'll have to just get as many points as possible because me and Steven are trying to get Ferrari in the constructors championship. But if we get the performance we did today, we're not going to get them. So we need to get better performances and just keep on going forward.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next point, actually. You say that if you get performances like today, you're not going to be able to get up there. Do you think it's a possibility then that you're going to be able to catch the Ferraris? Do you think that that's not out of the question just yet?
I don't think it's out of the question just yet. I think today's race did kind of hurt us a bit, but I don't think it's out of the question though. I think we do need some luck in our hands. I think if Andrea or Ethan say, "Oh, we can't race this week," and then me and Stephen do a double podium. I think we definitely can. We just need the luck, and we just need to do the consistency. But we'll keep on doing that.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for coming in to speak today, and good luck next week.
All right, cheers, thank you.
Oh, good. That was Daniel Riley, then the driver who finished in 7th place, and we'll get the opportunity to speak to Jack Weaver now. And well, do you want to just talk us through that race from your perspective?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I couldn't hear you.
That's fine. It was just nice and simple. It was. Do you want to just talk us through the race that would have been, I believe, your home race at least from your perspective?
Poor qualifying, really. I just struggled for pace overall the whole weekend. I was lucky to get fifth, really, in the end. So
Well, I mean,
yeah, it wasn't the best. Wasn't the best race I've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you make your own luck. Were you feeling positive about Silverstone heading into it?
It's one of my worst tracks, I'll be real. So not really. I'll take a fifth to come away with it. Come away with 10 points, not too bad. I'll take it.
You'll take a 5th place then in a race that you wouldn't necessarily say you're particularly very good at. Do you think that? Well, I mean, looking at maybe the constructors' championship, something would be possible for Kick Sauber. You were before this race 8 points behind McLaren. Of course, your teammate not attending today. Do you think that maybe the fight for P3 could still be on only 8 points off?
Yeah, 100%. I think just need to lock in for the next few races and try and see what we can do.
Oh yeah, on that topic, how are you feeling about Belgium?
Hold on. Sorry, one.
That's all good. Right, we'll take that opportunity then to speak to. Oh,
So sorry. My phone glitched.
that's fine. You back now?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Sorry.
Did you hear the question? Do you want me to repeat it?
No, I didn't hear anything. I just decided to cut off completely.
That's fine. How are you feeling about Belgium?
I'll be real. Another track I don't really like. Same with Netherlands. After that, I've got a run of tracks I do like. So just looking forward to them.
Yeah, fair enough. And it's just about maximising the results from those that you don't like. Well, thank you very much for speaking to me today, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. See you next week. Thank you.
A very quiet interview room today. It does feel that much at least. Last week I think we ended up having 6 interviews. Anyway, either way, we're going to get the opportunity to speak to Carl Stewart now, and I hope I'm not interrupting any conversation. But do you want to just talk us through that British Grand Prix from your perspective?
Well, that's the benefit of being the last person in the waiting room. You know you're about to be pulled in, so we ended the conversation that me and Dan were having. But I know I can't complain. This is probably one of the higher results that I could have probably asked for today. But that 3 second penalty on the first lap, which ultimately meant that I lost the position at the end there. It was really annoying because I watched it back as well, the race replay. Like, I went wide in 8th position. I came back on the track in 8th position, and I slowed down to make sure I didn't take anyone out, and I rejoined. I was really good. So it is really annoying that the game's giving me 3 second there, and I'm not really going to bother trying to get it removed. I don't really have an onboard shot of it at the moment. I'm not streaming at the moment, so I'm just have to suck it up. And then yeah, that second stint was a bit annoying because I had the measure of Jack the whole way through the stint, and then the tyres just dropped off on that last lap. They just didn't want to work anymore, and then I lost the back end through cops, even though I didn't do anything different. It was just I just had less tyre grip, which I probably should have gone a bit easier. But he was about 6 tenths back on that last lap, so I kind of figured I had to kind of give it everything, and ultimately, yeah, that ended up with him coming past. So. Yeah, that's probably my fault on the last lap, but without the 3 second penalty, I would have still ended up ahead of him. So it is a bit frustrating, but as I say, I've got to find the positives here. Like, I haven't even looked at the full results, but I'm pretty sure I'm ahead of Dan Riley. I think I'm ahead of Bert. Like, I'm ahead of quite a lot of people, which I probably shouldn't have been ahead of. So, quite good. Yeah, the one stop paid off today. Like, that wasn't the plan. It was never the plan to do the one stop, but because I started on the hards, and I made that decision very last minute because I was going to start on the mediums. So I started on the hards, and yeah, I just had grip. Even when they were, I think I pitted at about 80% wear, they still were gripping very well. It was a really good race tyre here at Silverstone, those hards. So yeah, I just decided, let's do it for the one stop, let's do it. And yeah, I think that paid off because I would have ended up, I would have still been behind Bert and Connor and everyone that started ahead of me. So yeah, it is a shame I lost that to Jack on the end there, but I mean, he was pretty rapid towards the end. I had to actually push every lap so that he didn't catch me. So I can't say he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, and I mean, was it nervy moments? I don't know if you were aware or anything, but when Dan Riley picked up that puncture,
I wasn't aware it was a puncher, so I thought he'd just gone off. It did cross my mind that it could have been a puncher. And I couldn't for the life of me remember what puncher range terrible is in this game. I think when I went past him, I think I just ticked over like 73% wear, and I knew I was only going one more lap after that. But yeah, I didn't know at the time it was a puncher, but I did question it. But in my head, it was I wanted to get to lap 20. I wanted to feel quite comfortable. Or was it lap 19? I can't remember where I stopped. Yeah, I thought, you know what, look, I'm at 75% on that last lap. Now I'm going to come in. So, yeah, I didn't know, but it did cross my mind for a minute. I was asking Connor, I was like, do you know what puncher range is? I ain't got a clue. I tried asking my Google Home, but it was like, I don't know, but here's some results on the screen. I'm like, I can't look at your screen right now. I'm racing. So, yeah, I took the risk. And as I say, I think that is the reason I finished in the position I did. So, totally worth it. In fact, do we know what is puncher territory? Do you know off the top of your head?
I believe they updated it to 80% or above. I think it was 70% or above before, but
That's what I thought. So yeah, I think I did pit just like about 79-80%. So
but
yeah, I'm not.
I think it's even. If you hit that, you might still not get a penalty or a puncher even.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's anywhere. I think it's anywhere between like 80 and 100, so it can happen at any time. I think you can even get to 100 and not necessarily get it. It's just that's the only range where you can potentially get it. So yeah, it paid off today. But yeah, as I didn't know that's what happened to Danny. He just told me in the waiting room there. So yeah, I think I got quite like well clear. I think I must have been a little bit easier on the tyres, and I think that came from running behind. Was in that train with Stuart, Connor, and Harry for so long that I was just kind of in a DRS train that I wasn't really pushing very hard because they were both very quick on the straights. I don't know what they were running. I feel like they might have been running 0-0 wings because every straight line they were so quick. So I thought I wasn't going to go for any crazy dives. So I was just charging battery, saving tyres, so I knew I can come at them later. So I think that probably helped with my tyre life. Probably why I had a bit more tyres than Dan had.
But yeah, and I mean, it's all about in the end of the race and in the end of the season, the fine margins. How are you feeling about Belgium then?
Oh, it's never been a good one. But then again, Belgium, I think Belgium and Silverstone are usually quite like similar in terms of where I tend to finish. Like neither track are ones where I'm like confident, but I'm okay. I'm okay enough to pick up points, and other people have issues. And Belgium is more prone to safety cars and people crashing out, like with Luca last year, than Silverstone is. So I hope to have another clean one. Obviously, I mean, technically, I didn't have a clean one as such today because it gave me a penalty, which I don't think I should have had. But I had no other penalty outside of that. So hopefully another clean one. Hopefully I can pick up some positions with other people who might struggle. But yeah, it's never been one I've been confident with. I've never really been particularly good at it. But so far, I mean, since I've kind of done my setting changes and my new setup direction, I mean, it might just be coincidence, but so far it seems to be going well. So maybe this will be my year when I do quite well. But Connor tends to go better than me at Belgium. It just seems to be one of his better tracks. So not massively high hopes, but not too worried about it. But I'm more looking forward to some of those fun tracks coming up in the second half of the season for sure.
Absolutely fair enough, and we'll see it towards the end of this season. Of course, almost reaching the halfway mark, and we'll be crossing over it next week. Thank you very much for speaking to us today, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Catch you next week.
But yeah, that will be the end of our stream today. Of course, a very, very interesting one. Strategically, of course, Dan, getting that puncher and everybody else. I think going maybe a little bit too short on the hards and maybe a little bit too long on the mediums. But what do I know? We'll see you next week at Belgium, where I'm sure we'll be getting another one of those interesting strategic battles. Underway. Stamps' authority once again.
My word, this could go wrong. On the brakes, goodness me, what a launch!
Look at that.
It just all comes down to this